good. I love being here. I think I say that every time that I come, but I really, really, really do. And so when I'm thinking of a topic, and I always think that I'm brilliant. You know, I think, oh, this is a good topic. I think I'm being very wise and clever. And then I look, and I look online and I start doing research, and the topics are, you know, there is no new topic, right? There's so much out there, because really what I was thinking of is spiritual evolution. What do you do when your life is no longer working? And so it was this spiritual evolution theory. And so come to, you know, welcome to the spiritual evolution. And what I really like about that topic is that it starts feeling like it's talking about me. As an aging feminist, I always believed that a revolution was, you know, the way to go. And so welcome to the spiritual evolution. What do we do when our lives aren't working? We turn to spirit. That's it. And it feels revolutionary in some ways, how we turn that over. And so what it came from, however, was that I feel that many people around me are kind of stuck. Like they're not really moving forward. You know, my own judgment and my own prayer reveals to me that it's really me, right? I'm the one who's stuck. I'm the one who's not moving forward. I'm the one who's got judgment about all of the world, about our whole culture, who's stuck in this mire of what we're living in right now. Again, the mind. There we go. And you know what it is? It's the hearing illness that affect the, and I don't even have a minute. I don't have my hearing aids. I can't hear my own voice. Okay. Anyway, this is frustrating to me. All of this is frustrating to me, and I want to move on. And I want people to move on. And I want them embrace new things, and I want them to look at things differently. And that what I find is when I was looking online about spiritual evolution, there is a lot out there about spiritual evolution. Even things called Welcome to the Spiritual Revolution. And but what I found when I was looking at all of that it's really not what I wanted to talk about. So again, I got to feel a little bit clever. And the focus that's out there right now is that in all of the blogs and all of the online information is that the spiritual evolution is meant for ascension, is to raise your vibration until we die and ascend at that point. And that's not what I want to talk about. And so according to Wikipedia, which is a source I strongly discourage with my own students, this is what they said spiritual evolution is. Spiritual evolution is the philosophical, theological, esoteric, or spiritual idea that nature and human beings and/or human culture evolve, either extending from an established cosmological pattern or in accordance with a certain pre-established potentiality. And that's wordy. That's really wordy. And I really believe if you want to understand it, it should be stated with a kind of new age ring to it, or maybe David Attenborough's accent to make it really engaging. But, well, I do understand it, and I think we all probably do too. It's not the explanation about where I'm going this morning. And so, Shurham Shiva explains his theory of spiritual evolution this way. He says that there are 4 levels, and the first one is the animal or the primitive mind, and we all know that. At this, we're only concerned with our own physicality and with survival, and that's all we do. We're looking at food, work, reproduction. We want to survive. Level 2 is when religion enters into it. So now we have this physicality, and we're embracing a little bit of spiritual concepts. This stage is, unfortunately, though, filled with dogma and rules and restrictions. And even though it discusses individual divinity, it also introduces the duality of damnation. And so this is where we've come from, this physicality into this light spiritual area that we're bound by these rules and this duality of divinity with damnation. And Shiva next discusses level 3, which he calls Spirituality 101. He says, as a progressive soul evolves, we constantly seek more inspiration. And we seek it through dualism. We seek inspiration through dualism in level 3. And we're drawn to Eastern style spirituality and meditation. That's level 3. But due to the strong programming that exists in this is where I think many of our New Age and New Thought centers are. We're right about here. We're moving out of this concept of duality, and yet we're caught with these really strong, independent, fierce leaders who are powerful, and their words are powerful. And but New Age or New Thought tells us that because we can create our own reality, because we create the context of our world, there's a fair amount of shame and blame going on. I'm not praying enough, I'm not meditating enough, I'm not good enough. Oh, it's the way I phrased that. Is it the way I drove in the rain, or is it that the rain is a natural thing? I don't know. It's like, oh, I was late, not because of the rain, because I left a little bit, and we can go on and on and on trying to find where that point of truth is in us. Well, we're listening to what we're being taught in New Thought. And I have found that myself many times. And according to Shiva, Spirituality 101 is agenda-driven, with fear of bad karma, fear of regression, guilt, shame. And so while we're trying to raise our enlightenment and our point of being, we're always clouded. There's a little cloud around us. Although many of us are just happy, 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 right? Many of us believe that we've gained that. And I believe many of us do. I do. But he says it's filled with agenda-driven men and women who focus on those who are seeking help. And I thought, wow, that was a powerful condemnation of New Thought. That's not good, because my whole being is New Thought. He says that in some ways it's even tougher to evolve out of this than it is to evolve out of religion. Because in order to evolve, it's almost like a divorce or a death of our lives. We have to literally step away. And I recently had that experience in this last year where I had to step away from my own spiritual center in order to grow. And I tell you, it was painful. And it was one of the most enlightening things I've done, and at the same time there was a total feeling of regression that I went through in those first few months. But on the other hand, once you separate, you're at level 4, which he calls the beyond. Level 4, this is when you understand and truly inhabit your soul's worth. I can't say I've done that. But your soul begins to reach adulthood, you become independent, all the past shenanigans and artistry fade away. I don't quite understand that either. I like what he has to say, but there's many things I don't. He says the beyond is where your soul journey starts. And you begin the process of ascension beyond duality and into no place where there's neither bad nor dark, light. If you're past duality, then where are we? That's a good question, right? We all have to define that for ourselves. But now, while I think this is a fascinating concept of spiritual evolution, again, it's not where I wanted to go today. I just wanted to give you a basis to weigh against, because that's what's out there. Spiritual evolution is so that we raise our vibration, so that we love one another, we're all one, and then we die and we ascend. We never die, we are all one. Thought continues. evolution continues, and we all belong together. And that's, I believe that, I do. And I also believe that I want to look at our progress, our basic progress as spiritual evolution, where we have come from and where we intend to go. Instead of getting stuck in that, you know, that familiarity of things, and just kind of move forward with something new. So sometimes when I am talking to people, I'm reminded of, in New Thought, I'm reminded of the process of addiction. And the first time someone has one of those true spiritual experiences, we try to recapture that moment. And it's the same with alcoholism and drug addiction, or any addiction, really. There's this one high, they say, that you're always chasing. And I think it's true in spiritual programs as well. And so we keep doing the same thing over and over. We keep saying the same words over and over. We sing the same songs at services. Even on the way here, I listen to the same tape that I have listened to 100 times easily by Karen Drucker. Some of those most beautiful songs that just fill me. But they're the same songs, right? And who wouldn't want to relive those moments again? I believe we've all had them. I remember my first spiritual experience, but when we do this, we lose the context of our lives. We lose seeking out something besides Karen Drucker to listen to. You know, perhaps if you had a CD out, I should listen to that on the way home today, you know, like that. Because that's what expands our minds, is when we do something new. If I stayed and only repeated the first moment that I had a spiritual experience, I'd still be on top of a brownstone in Minneapolis, Minnesota, with a Bible, a white Bible that has my name in gold engraved on it in gold letters from my confirmation in a Lutheran church, and a bottle of Mad Dog 2020 in the other. You know, that was my first spiritual experience. If I wanted to stay there, I guess I could have and kept reliving that moment over and over. But I don't. I didn't want to. I wanted something new. And then I moved into AA at some point. And AA saved my life. And please don't, if anyone is in the program, don't take this as a condemnation of that program or that I'm telling you not to go there. I think it's absolutely a viable and important program. It saved my life, and I still sponsor, I still participate. My sponsees call me, you know, the big book thumper, much like people thump the big books of Science of Mind or Unity. And but at some point in AA, I realized that, well, it's so important for identification to claim who we are in those rooms and to tell our stories. There comes a point where we change. And I wanted to identify differently. And so I started introducing myself instead of as, hi, I'm Kate, I'm an addict alcoholic. I started saying, hi, I'm Kate, I'm clean and sober. Because I believe how we talk about ourselves creates who we are. Well, that didn't go over so well. And they let me know that very quickly, that I really wasn't one of them any longer if I didn't want to use the label. And you know, even now when I do attend a meeting, I say that I'm clean and sober. You can just see the shifts happening. But I will always be one of them, so to speak. I just recently celebrated 40 years. But as with everything, it was time to move, thank you. It was time to move on at around, you know, at a certain point, because we need to move on at a certain point. We need to change. So there's this story about Buddha that it is said that somewhere on his journey, Buddha came across a river that was too deep to cross. And so he stopped and he built a raft of branches and twigs and tree roots, and he crossed the river. And then he put the raft on his back and he carried it with him. At some point, and this is the phrase from that, he says, He continued on his way, and he carried the raft on his back until the ground lost the smell of water. I like that. It was then that he felt the weight of the raft on his shoulders, and very carefully he dismantled it, created a fire, and he burned it. Later, he would speak about our need to leave the weight behind us, right? The weight of our lessons behind us, and to quit carrying the loads that no longer serve us. And some people have asked, why didn't he just leave the raft for others to use and to assist them in crossing the river? And the response is because it is the building of our own raft that creates the lesson of our own crossing the river. And it's the critical thinking, it's the self-reflection and the problem solving that is the paradigm that we want to live in. Critical thinking, problem solving, and self-reflection as the paradigm to live in. And others cannot do the work for us. Not the powerful speakers, not the religious scriptures. Others cannot do the work for us. We have to cross the river for ourselves. The point is that if we continue to carry the raft on our back, perhaps feeling that familiarity and security of it, we fail to see other opportunities that might be waiting for us further down the road. We get boxed in by the context of our lives, feeling that familiarity is what is sacred and what makes us feel safe. So on this point, what I have learned from talking with many ministers over the course of the last 4 or 5 years is that they say the most difficult thing to do with the congregation is to change up the service. Right? Many people are nodding in here. As board of trustees or ministers yourselves, you might have experienced this. And to remove the opening or the closing song, or to put the meditation in a different place, or to do something, but to change the order of service in some way is fragmenting in a congregation, which I think is interesting, because we get boxed in again by our personal context. We get boxed in by the familiarity and the repetition of our lives, even in an hour service that feels so secure, which is why we travel for miles to come here. And as I have said this before, but sometimes we lose direction because we don't go far enough. Again, that's Mark Nepo. And we turn around too soon because the surroundings are unfamiliar. I think that phrase changed my life when I read it, and that's why I keep saying it. Sometimes when you feel like you're beginning to be boxed in by your context, perhaps it's because you haven't gone far enough and it's just unfamiliar. There are times that I feel lost. There are moments when I thought that that everything I knew loses its significance to me. Somehow the importance of what I thought happened or was there is no longer present. And I want to recreate that moment. And I feel trapped in the parameters about this web of meaning that I've spun, right? And that web has become the weight that I carry. It's the raft that I use to cross. It's kind of like a zip line. Sometimes. That's a fun thing to do too, but how many times do you really have to zip line to feel that exhilaration, right? Or skydive, or scuba dive. There's a question about what we love to do, and then there's a question about why we're doing it, right? And if we know the purpose why, I think it's different than if we just do it out of always seeking that joy. So if you feel like your life is no longer working for you, or you want to change, join the spiritual evolution. It's pretty simple, really. And what I'm saying is, step it up. Step out. Be more clear. Use your voice. Trust yourself. Try something new. In order to evolve, we must leave that which no longer serves us. Right? We all do, through evolution. Whatever we were no longer served us, and we will be something different going forward. We will be, our country will be, our spiritual programs will be different from the time we leave here today. Everything changes. So we need to allow ourselves to change with that as well. And I invite you to allow yourself to move forward. Sometimes we have to give ourselves permission. We must reach past where we currently are to do something differently and to try something new. I recently watched Katharine Hepburn's 5 primary interviews. Many of you may have seen those as well. She did 2 with Dick Cavett, 2 with Barbara Walters, and 1 with a man named Clive James. In one of those interviews, she states this: we must proceed, we must develop, we must improve ourselves. You can't just stand still. That's the trouble with the lot of our product. It is played down to the lowest common denominator. I think it's a powerful statement. And I agree. When we settle, whether or not we feel like we're settling for less, but when we move into complacency, we are settling. If we want to evolve, if we want to continue to grow, then we must move forward. We must take that step. We always fall forward, always walk forward. And so joining the spiritual evolution means to continue to stretch yourself and your minds, do something differently. And so instead of reading a spiritual book or some self-help book, I don't know, read a mystery, right? Read some fiction novel, read something you would never pick up. Try something new so that you can go, yeah, that was good, but it's not where I'm at. But know what your choices are before you make them. Don't just make them based on comfort and familiarity. The same thing with meditation. Try something different. If you always listen to the waves of the ocean or to Karen Drucker or to chants or to a certain thing, try something different. Listen with silence. Just listen to the rain, listen to the wind, because that has its own rhythm that flows with our body. If we're truly one, that external force that you're pushing into your brain isn't necessary, because those sounds are out there. Even the barking of a dog at a certain point will trigger an awareness for you if you allow it. And so try not to cloud your mind with that familiar rhythm that we hear all the time. Always reach for more. Stretch yourself. That's the true spiritual evolution. The more we know and experience, the easier it is to understand others. The easier it is to believe that we truly are one with that other that's out there. If someone is lesbian or gay, if they're black or if they're Christian. I was once accused of accusing all Southern Baptists as being ignorant and racist. And it's like, no, that's not true. That's not my perception. But their perception was that. And so perhaps I had said something out of my awareness because I don't know enough about Baptist faith, right? No doubt. So I started reading about it, and it's like, oh, I can see why they thought that I said all Baptists were ignorant and racist, because of the way I phrased something, right? It's that simple, because I didn't know. So we cannot grow old. No, let's rephrase that. We cannot not grow old. We cannot not evolve. Intentional double negatives, because it's inevitable. It's unrepeatable, right? It's just like communication. It's irretrievable. It will occur whether you want it to or not. And as much as you may try, we cannot live without challenge. We cannot live without meaning. That people, we as humans, have an inexplicable need to discover new things, to look at something and to reach over and smell a rose, even though we have smelled that same rose every other morning for the past, month. I do it all the time. I go up and I have a lemon tree in my house, and every day I go up and touch the leaves. It's going to feel the same, but there's something about it that just, and so then I reach over and touch a new leaf, and it's different. It's the same tree, but a new leaf on my lemon tree is fragile and soft and pliable, and the old one has a leathery feeling, right? And until it falls off, it is what it is, but it's growing. It always grows. It always changes. That's evolution, and this is our heritage. We need to be proud of our heritage, to say, to move forward, this is my heritage, this is who I am, to become something new, to do something different, to reach out to someone you had not reached out to before. The significance of the dramas that we have participated in, to discover how we have serviced the larger scheme of our lives and our eventual deaths. This is the true path to self-realization and to spiritual evolution. The idea is not to retire or retreat, but to engage with understanding, with love, with passion and compassion, internally for yourself and externally for others. Rasha states, it will serve you well to allow they will serve you well to allow the unprecedented to serve as your new normal. Allow the unprecedented to serve as your new normal. Don't always settle for what you are accustomed to. Do not rely on the familiarity or comfort of the form itself, but direct your attention to the quality of the energy that surrounds it, outside of the form itself. Direct your attention on the quality of the energy, especially for things that are new, and that vibrational quality that they might give to you. So, thank you.